Hi everyone, welcome back to our studio. I'm painting out here in the gallery out in Sydney, Nebraska. What I'm going to be doing is starting another challenge. So some of you join me for the 30-day, 30 roses, 30 minutes, painting 30 minutes a day. That's pretty hard to, some of you say that's pretty hard to stay up with that every day. But, if you follow that, you get so much better. Now we're going to try a landscape challenge. I'm going to try to do the landscape somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Those of you that paint plein air paint like me, landscapes to go outside and paint, you usually try to get them done right around 2 hours because the light changes so much during that time. So we're going to paint some smaller boards. This one that I'm going to be doing here is an 11 by 14. It is 11 inches this way, 14 inches this way. It is an MDF board is what I'm using here. As a matter of fact, I'll pull one out. Here's an unprepared one. And what I do with these, I get these from my local wood supplier, and I get them in big sheets, 4x8 sheets, and I cut them down. So each one of these costs me about, I'd say 50 cents or so, which is, really nice. It's a nice stable surface, and I paint the front and the back. If you only paint one side, the board can, because it's 1/8 inch thick, can slightly warp. So I paint the front and the back. The other one that you can use, which is very stable, which I used a lot of it for the Rose Challenge, is this is a little 8x10 from the Rose Challenge. This is what's called tempered hardboard, and you can get this at any supplier, any home store. All home stores carry this. I get the double tempered, so it's tempered on both sides, so it's smooth on both sides, and you just give this a couple coats of paint, acrylic paint. Now this is, I did have a question on one of the Rose classes. Well, isn't tempered oil? Yeah, this is oil impermeated, and with the new generation acrylics, you can go right over oils as long as they're cured without any kind of trouble with it. Those are the new generation acrylics that are made usually after 2000 or so. They're made within the last 20 years. If you're using older generation acrylics, no, there's still some problems with them sitting on top of oils. Just write the manufacturer. That's really easy to answer. As a chemist myself and paint manufacturer, I don't go out and test every single, type of acrylic that's out there. So you just have to write them and ask if you're going to use a different brand. Heritage you can use with no problem. Okay. Now for for the board, what I did is we have a product called a canvas prep medium, and I was prepping a whole bunch of canvases. So I had a bunch of it left over. So I went ahead and did a bunch of these boards at the same time. So this is a canvas prep. But if you want to just give it a couple coats of a light white paint, that's fine. The nice thing about the canvas prep is it has a sealer and a blocking agent in it. So, it makes just a super nice surface to prep with, to prep anything, canvas, wood, anything with. And I do the white. A lot of you that paint the landscapes with me from the landscape classes and stuff, many times I use a toned canvas, and that's up to the artist about whether you use a toned canvas or not. Toned canvases, we usually give glazes and stuff. I've toned canvases like warm in the front, cool in the back, all different kinds of ways, showing you ways in which the Dutch masters did it, all the way to contemporary impressionistic painters did it. There's a lot of different ways that artists can do it. For these quick little studies, we might tone a couple of them, but I'm going to do mainly working off the white canvas here, just to show you a start beginning. And we'll be painting acrylic. I'm going to be painting most of acrylic. I do have a cap of extender out. We'll talk about the palette in just a second. But most of the time I'm going to paint acrylic so I can paint pretty quickly. And I'll be using long handle brushes. Okay, let's talk about the palette here for a second. So this is my palette. Those of you that have painted larger paintings with me, when I easel paint, I usually paint out on glass, but I'm going to do it out on the white here so you can see the colors on the white in reference to the colors of the board as well. Here's my colors, and these are the colors I'm going to use for the entire 12 weeks of landscape here. I'm going to use a Hansa yellow. I'm going to use Indian yellow. Indian yellow is one of the oldest Dutch painting colors, and it is a glazing color as well as a mixing color. It makes fantastic, not quite as powerful yellow greens. So I'm going to use that. The more opaque and very powerful, more toned yellow oxide. So Hansa yellow, Indian yellow, yellow oxide. Burnt umber I have out this time. Now normally when I do a lot of impressionist style And especially if you're following the Impressionist techniques of the 19th century, we don't use a burnt umber, but I'm going to be using it into the landscape because a lot of Dutch and stuff do that as well. This is so burnt umber, naphthol red light, one of my favorite painting colors, of course, burnt sienna. This is your beautiful, cool phthalo green blue, powerful 20th century color that just makes, you combine this with these yellows and you make a fantastic array of yellows, yellow greens, and colors you're going to be using into all the different times of the season. This is my phthalo blue, my ultramarine blue. Now, normally I use just one blue, but I put out two blues in the landscape, especially depending on the sky and the water and how I want to do that. And phthalo blue makes, in addition to the phthalo green blue, they make beautiful greens as well. And so when you set it out, I usually set phthalo blue out next to my yellows because it leans slightly yellow, and I set my ultramarine blue out towards my violet because it leans towards violet. So you always know where that is. So they have the phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, red violet, black and white. Those are the colors that just make a beautiful landscape palette that allows you to paint generally just about any landscape that you're ever going to want to do. There's glazing colors in there, like the Indian yellow and the burnt sienna is one of my very favorite canvas glazing undertone, when we talk about toning the canvas. So we'll use that later on to do that. Okay, so what are we painting today? Of course, you've already seen the photo of it. I haven't. Now, what I do is I go out and I take photos, or if I don't have time, I go out and I buy photos from different companies. And this one is a photo that I got from Adobe, and the Adobe stock photos, which I have a recurrent subscription with them, and so I buy photos from them all the time, and it allows you to paint them, teach with them, reproduce them, and all that kind of stuff. I just buy the rights to it. So this is a beautiful scene. Now, one of the things that I do is once I add the photo is I start, here I blow it up a little bit and crop it and start to see what would make a really nice. And I really did like this one, except for I like this blue sky that's right out over here. So, normally when we talk about, those of you who've taken landscape courses with me, we talk about the two powerful verticals on the end that create this porthole that takes you on this visual journey. And so this takes you on a real nice visual journey. This one does as well, but there's something about having that bit of a bright blue over there. I really like that in this photo. So I do like that one. Now, whatever one that you decide to use, how you print it out is important too, because, so this is the same photo printed out by two. This one I used my Adobe Photoshop to print it out. This one I used my Windows 10 to print it out. And you can see the differences in the color. Now, I like them both. I like the powerful sky in this one, but I like the light colors and stuff like that coming up here in front on this one. And the question becomes, when you're doing something like that, which one do you use? And I never copy a photo anyway. I don't like to do that because I don't think of photos make great paintings. I think they make great reference, but I don't think they make great paintings. And so I'm going to use this as a nice reference here. And so I'm going to put up both the photos. I'll stick them up here and use them here for me to refer to. I'll put one on each side, the light and dark, and to help me decide what it is that I want to do with each one here. Okay. So, one other question I get a lot here before we get into this painting, and then we got to get going because we want to try to get it done, is that how do I stick this board up? This is a regular gray board. I like to use something like that. It keeps me visually the neutrals out here. And then I just take this double-sided carpet tape that you see up here. You can hear it's sticky. And I just put a little bit there and a little bit there, and the board peels right off real quick right when it's done. I don't buy the expensive stuff because that's too sticky. Get some less expensive cheaper quality double-sided carpet tape and it'll work great for you. It just sticks it up. Okay, so when I come in here and I look at this and I look at one of the things that I like to do is I like to come in and establish really kind of what I call powerful horizontals, powerful verticals, and because each landscape needs that. And so right into the side up here we have, when you look at that, you have this water line that goes right back here and this tree line. That's somewhere right around halfway. I don't always like to go halfway, within a painting. I like it to follow the Dutch style, which is mostly it's about sky. But since I have a lot that I can develop down here, I'm going to do that, raise it up just a bit. So this is 14 inches, so come up 7.5 or 8 inches there. And then what we're going to do is turn around and we're going to work and key off of white. So we'll come down here, we'll look at my value scale here all the time. I always put it off to the side here and always have something to look at. Now the water there is very violet, so I'm going to reach over to my blue, my ultramarine blue, and my white, and I might touch in now. The difference here is this is a very weak pigment. This is a very powerful pigment. So this one takes just a little bit. But I want to key off of white. I want to keep this right up because the sky along the horizon stuff is usually around an 8 or a 9, and you use this for very powerful verticals. I'll drop down horizontals. I'll drop down right around here somewhere, and I'll just give myself a real nice clean horizontal. And what that does is that allows me, now I'll change that, but that helps you when you use a little square like this. And this is one that you could tell I got it from the Home Depot here. They just bought the ruler, cut off a chunk of it, and then put a couple screws here on the end. You can see that, put a couple screws here on the end, glued it together, put a couple little screws, and then I varnished it so I can paint on it and stuff like that. And I use this to help me square up verticals, horizontals, and stuff like that, and I just get a real nice look to it right away, and it just works. So I'm just going to pull this down just a bit, right down through here, and so that gives you a real nice. Now, when you're painting sky and you're painting basically the farthest reaches and stuff of it, you can also come down. I'll thin this down just a bit. I'll have just a bit of I did put on a pencil line right there so you can see that just lightly. But I'll put a little bit of that up here as well. And I'll take a little water in my brush and with this, and then I'll just pull some of that through there like that. This is going to allow me to then come in, and I'm gonna apply that real soft green right now. But I don't want it. It's this phthalo green blue is very powerful, very cool. So I'm going to use just a little bit of it and some of my yellow oxide right into some of my blues here, and I might even tone this, which is really good for having the burnt umber here. Tone this just a bit with, you can touch into water or extender. Sometimes I touch into extender just because it's close, and I like that. But I want to kind of decide on that edge of those trees right around here too. So I'll push some of those greens right up there like that. See, that gives you a real powerful horizontal that you can then, build off of here. And we can take some of this color, model it up here a bit. But you don't want to get it real dark. We want to model it up. We want to keep it in the upper value ranges right up in here. So we model it up with some of these other colors here. And we can touch and push some of this into the verticals like this. But and don't worry about getting something too much, because we'll pull through. So sometimes I'll pull the verticals, sometimes I'll drag through with the horizontals, and I'm going to paint it actually here a little more than what you see, and I'll drop down just to destroy that perfect vertical, horizontal just a bit there. And so I'll paint that back. We'll drop some of that back with the sky, but what I want to put in there is just a little bit of the movement. Now I'll come in with a smaller brush. I'm painting a 3/4 inch brush right now. We'll come in with a smaller brush. That's enough in there for right now. We have a lot to do, but that's enough in there for right now. What I want to go set the main story of the painting, which is that sky. And I love this real light phthalo blue kind of color that's up in the top color right up here into this one. See, I'm gonna look at the brightness difference between that. I really like that. So right now I'm coming right in between the two. One of the things you have to remember about your, about those colors, especially acrylics, is they dry darker. So you should be about a value or so lighter. So when I look at this color is going to be right about up here what that one is right there. I did like this powerful blue. Now that might be, let's see, that might be a bit too dark when it dries down. So I'm going to go up a little lighter, and I'm going to keep this probably up around a 7 or so. So it's right up in there. It's not quite as dark as that. It's right about there. It's not as light as that. So it's right about a 7. So let's work this back up. We'll take a little light and just work this back up to a 7 here. And let's just come across the top of the sky here with our 7. Right like that. That's a, see, I do like that color in that particular part of the landscape. It'll get a little bit more sprays of violet and stuff in there, which I do like. So we'll hit there. But now let's go back into our light color, and let's just come right down with some light color, moving that. I don't, sometimes I'll do longer horizontal strokes, but I don't normally do a lot of long horizontal strokes because I like the movement that the sky gets, and so we use a lot of smaller strokes. Then I'll lighten up a bit more as I head right down towards this horizon, and I'm going to paint right down here. So I'm lightening up. We're going to head up towards that 9, and I'm going to paint right down here towards those trees, right with my value 9, right down into those trees and stuff there just a bit. And let those get lost for right now. We'll bring some of them back up, but we'll let those just stay lost back there. I know you see more of a line there. We'll bring that. We want to keep everything kind of soft now. Now, when you're painting sky, painting water, water is a reflection of the sky, but it is always just a little bit darker stuff too. So we're going to take some of these colors right now and overpaint your water. In other words, make your water really just a little bit larger than what it actually is or what you're seeing. And we can have just a bit of that ultramarine blue in there too as well. We'll pull that in, blur that edge there. Maybe a bit more light right along that edge. I like to paint. What I do when I paint is like I paint the roses. You saw me on the roses all the time. Is I paint back and forth edges, back and forth the edges. Painting is about edges, and so I paint back and forth to lose edges, soften edges. I will overpaint something a little larger, then paint it back into position. That's how I like to paint. I don't like to follow, structured perfect lines, because that doesn't that loses interest, makes it too stiff. So I paint one side and then come back and paint it again. Like here, I'll lighten that light back up. So I carried that blue down just a bit, and then I'll lighten it back up. I'll push that sky back up into there, and that's really where you start to get a lot of your interest and stuff like that. We'll carry some of this darker. We can add a bit of the ultramarine back up here. We'll come back up here to this side, up into the front, and step back on your brush. That's why I love the long handle brushes. They do that. Then we'll just move this through here. We create some of the movement of the color into the water. This is your first look. This is all going to change, but you just want to create that movement there, right? And let's take a bit of that ultramarine blue here, right up into the, see the difference between the ultramarine blue and that phthalo blue up there? That is quite a bit of difference. We'll carry a little bit of that. This is what I love into a sky, is when I carry those two up in there. Sometimes I'll push, I just like to carry those colors so you can see that modeling of that color through that ultramarine blue heading in there. Sometimes I paint a real powerful deep one like you see over here. And what I'm liking right now is right in between the two of those, so I'm just going to do that. I like that. Let's Now, I like, there's techniques that I show you in some of the landscape sketches where we negative paint back around a cloud once we establish a cloud. You can tell the light direction here. On these clouds, you have a light section here, you have a shadow section, the shadow section here, light section here, and you can see the light and the shadow here. So the light is coming from the upper right, really on this type of painting here. So if I start a cloud, I'll take some white, maybe just a little bit of my blue, and then I'll model it with, if I'm painting up on the light side, I'll model it with a little bit of my yellow, which is that nice warm, and we can start this larger, lighter cloud, look of the cloud here. And of course, as it goes down, it'll pick up and mix up with some of that blue, soften for just a second. But, and we'll walk this across. We'll stop somewhere right over there because we want to preserve some of that blue. I'll pick up a little bit more white. Let's come right up over here. Now, if I'm out there painting plein air, I'm already building trees and stuff right now. I paint a heck of a lot faster. And of course, I'm not explaining to anybody also because you don't have much time. We'll paint these clouds a little softer going back, model this around back here a bit. There, get some of that movement. Looking for that softer movement. Start with this nice warm up in here, build more. A little more texture. And this is the beautiful thing about acrylics. I'm going to let this dry for a bit so then it becomes easier to paint these clouds in just a minute. One of the things that I always had a problem when I was an oil artist for a long, long time, and nothing against oils. There's a lot of people that just absolutely love oils. I understand that. But I like to paint the way in which I paint. I like this to paint acrylic here. And I'm going to let this dry up now so that when I come back, I've got this nice softness there. And when I come back, I can build that cloud anything I want because the underside layer is dry. Now, I got that from years and years and years of painting the Dutch. And what we did with the Dutch is we would paint layers. That's how they did it. They painted layers. Even though they used oils, they painted layers, thin layers. And I did that for a long time, and then I decided, why am I using oils and stuff? Why do you need oils when you're painting Dutch techniques when you can do it all pretty evenly with acrylics and pretty quickly? Now I'll reflect that cloud back into the back of the water back there just a bit. So as you add one thing, you reflect it back here. If you're following true to form, landscape tech, everything in the water slightly darker than everything into the sky, even though it's a nice reflection, not perfect. Unless the light is very light that day, the reflections are not exactly perfect. So we'll carry some of this misty stuff right there. We'll build some more cloud. Let me just build just a little bit more of this across right here. See, I use that Xing motion, lift the pressure on the brush so that your cloud comes soft here. You can touch it with your finger. You can shear it like I showed you how acrylic artists do in the roses and stuff. We can shear that off just a bit here. We'll come back and paint it, but I love that movement up there like that into the cloud. So basically what that does is it sets some of our background. Let's come in here real quick and we'll set some more colors. Let's set that nice light kind of foreground. Well, it's light here, dark over here. So we'll take just some of our yellow oxide, a little bit of our, boy, that makes that color just almost perfect for that one area right there. We'll come in right in there and we'll pull this across, not quite, well, maybe just a touch over halfway, but vary it a little bit here. Just look at blocking some of this in. Change the tone a bit. Mix in just a bit of your umber here and change that tone a bit down here. Move that around a bit. Change your colors down. I'm a big advocate of brush mixing and changing. So I'll change up my colors, quite a bit as I'm blocking in and just putting in areas and reading areas. I'll change those colors. So I get some of that modeling in. So I'm kind of right in between the two colors there. So that works out okay there. And we have these lovely sets of trees that we want to put in here. And, you know, yeah, you can, it all depends on the type of technique that you do. A lot of people say, well, you got to finish that sky before you finish those, you get into those trees. No, because a lot of today's modern, what we call representational artists, if you want to look up that, those of you that don't know, and that's basically what I classify myself as when I paint a lot of different like rose compositions in vases and stuff like that. Representational artists are artists that paint with an impressionistic edge to their paintings. They make something that's easy to recognize, a landscape of what it is, but they don't copy anything exactly. And that's what I really like. I don't want it to be a photograph of what it is that, you know, a true realism of what it is that I'm painting, because that, it might as well take a picture, especially with today's digital arts, you know. So, I mean, and I don't mean that to sound like derogatory against anybody that likes realism. I love realism too. I paint realism. But I do like it to be a painting. And so I love the movement of color, the brushwork, the calligraphy, for that to show up. So I'm just taking a smaller here, number 8, fusion flat. And you can use bristles, you can use anything to get some of your trees. I'm going to put in what we call the core shadows of the tree. You have what is called the core shadows. And then I'll paint the back of the tree front. And then I'm going to leave these. These are what are called sky holes in between the trees. Now, a lot of representational artists will not leave very many sky holes. I still, to this day, like to leave a little bit of sky holes. I'm just going to model up some phthalo green blue, some burnt umber. Don't overmix it too much here. You might even touch a little bit of blue. It could be a phthalo blue, which is real powerful, so you got to be kind of careful. You can touch into a little bit of your black, just a bit up here. But you can see on your palette, you get all these mottled core darks. And let's come down into here and change up your color a bit. Don't paint too long. See all these different colors you get here. Hold your brush back like this. This gives you a nice impressionistic edge to your brush here. Okay, and concentrate on that core dark that you see there. Don't copy it. Just try to, you know, what a lot of us do is we squint down so we can see where the dark is. But we want to concentrate on getting this nice core, that nice core dark right in there like that. And you can see that. Then we'll come over. I'll lighten this just a bit because I'm going to head back. Sometimes I'll just add a little sky over here. We'll lighten it just a bit. We'll come back down over here, drop down just a bit, and let's shoot a little bit of that core right into where this tree is going to be over here. Move your brush, slide that around. I don't want it very much, you know, of too dark in there, too much of it, just a bit of it, and come up. Be sketchy, be just a little bit of it. And I'm going to drop this one down just a bit more. And we'll drop some of that right along the edge of the shoreline there just a bit, okay? And try to capture, you know, try to feel what that movement is on that and capture that with the brush movement here. So you capture the growing movement of those long grasses along the side there just with the brush movement and calligraphy of your brush here. And sometimes that's all you need, you know, when you're putting something in. You don't need to go in there with a liner brush or do any of that kind of stuff. Of course I will, but you don't always need to do that. Now let's go back. Let's lighten up. Let's yellow green up. Let's add some sky color into this. Get some of this sky. Let's lighten up and create some mottled yellow greens here that are lighter. And you're going to look at this. This is right about a value 6 or so right in there. So we'll do that. And we'll use this right now, just a corner of our brush. Sometimes I use a little bristle. I like the corner of the fusion here if I'm going to draw out and try to capture some of the movement of the tree. So I'm just kind of sketching like this with lighter color here. And some people use fan brushes and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan. I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm not a big advocate of the fan brush. I do like it. You know, we do make them and we have them in our brush line and stuff. But I'm one of, you know, use your brush like a pencil and almost like a pencil drawing kind of thing. But I'm looking at the edges of this, and you might see like there's a heavier little clump there. Leave some of the little sky holes that you see there, you know, into the tree. And just start building it. You sometimes just pull the brush flat like that. Put a bit of this over some of your core darks here, like that. Tap that through, pull that through. That's why I love the acrylics, because some of that dries up and I can set that right on top without losing, you know, too much of the color. Let's brighten up. Step over here to the side. More yellow, because that other tree over there is more Hansa. Maybe a little light right in here. Let's take some of this Hansa and some of this light, and let's come out this way where that light's hitting it. Yeah, that's kind of a good. Now, real heavy right in here, because you're getting further away, it's harder to see the sky holes. We'll push some of that right up there, some of this off to the side. We'll come in here. Let's change the color up a bit. Let's get some of that right in here and up. You can leave some of that sky hole between those right there. Okay, just try to capture the feeling of it. Don't try to, you know, copy it in any way. I just try to capture the feeling of it. We'll push some of this right up over that dark, right up there, so we can develop our shoreline there. So that really, what I consider that is the back of the tree. Then we'll put in the shadows of the tree, and then we'll put in the lights of the tree. Now, the nice thing about, and this is the one thing about, and step back, you know, always get up when you see me come back like this. Step back, get up, get back away from it so you can look at it. When I'm looking at that camera there, I have a big monitor here that shows me what that camera looks like. So that camera is about 8 feet away. So when you're looking at that, and you're looking at that, you look at those two there, and in between here, you can see you're just starting to capture the effect of it. You're not copying it. Don't copy it, because what happens when you copy is your brain will go right into this precise precision mode, and then the painting starts to become stiff. Now, that's what happens to some of you when you followed me on the 30-day rose challenge and we painted all those roses. It's easy for me because I'm creating a rose. It's difficult for you because you're trying to kind of copy what I did, and your brain is sliding in and out of that creative and copying mode, and that copying mode makes you stiff. So we want to stay out of that, okay? Okay, so I'm going to take some of these colors, tone them down, a little bit of burnt umber into that, a little burnt sienna is beautiful. Oh, but what I was saying is when you look at the dark one that's here, you see a lot more of the reds and siennas. You see a lot more of the siennas and stuff, colors in there, than you do over, you know, on this side. Let me slide this over for a second. Than you do over on this one. So you don't see those siennas in there like you do on that one. And that's kind of for you to decide what you want to do. But you can have some of those siennas in there. Those are beautiful, and you might, you know, touch a little bit of those siennas, because those, you know, that sometimes, you know, when you're painting, when you're a landscape painter, and you know, you of course you go out and you pick your subject. And so you go out and you pick your subject, and you know, on a spring day, everything is all different greens. So you have to concentrate on making many different varieties of greens. As you head into the summer and stuff, the landscapes get really pretty as they start to get a little bit more of the siennas and brown tones and stuff like that. So, and that just makes your landscapes a little bit prettier as, you know, you capture some of those siennas and stuff. And there's even more of a red that you don't really see on that one, that you pick up on the one on the right there. Okay, so, and you have to decide, do I want to come out here? Let's grab just a bit of this dark, maybe some of that sienna into that dark. Grab this other shadow one right out here a little bit more. So I put this on here, and then I'll go back and just look through and see, do I need a little bit more of something in there? And that's pretty good. We'll just grab that, you know, I'm not going to be too perfect about that. Just grab a little bit of that shadow out there. Now, what I want to do is take some of these colors, which I like these right now, and I'm going to push them right down into my water for right now as well. A little side-to-side motion. Usually we do reflections up and down like this, so I'll pull some down, and these are going to come quite forward here. That's going to come quite forward here into this water. So we'll grab some of that. We don't really have it on this side here, so we'll do an excellent job over here pulling some of those colors through. Maybe just a whisper of some of that back along this side here, back up in there. But a lot of times we pull down, we pull reflections down, we pull side to side to give movement to things and reflections down. Now paint it bigger than what it needs to be. That's what I always do. I always paint it bigger than what it needs to be, and then I paint it into position with the other colors. You can add a little water, a little extender if you want. Some of you like, I like the feel of extender. I like to use it just because it makes the paint slide. I'm not a blender. I'm a tone painter. I'm not a blender. And so I don't like it if it sticks around too long, then it stays wet and it blends, and I don't like doing that. I'm a tone painter, so I like to grab some of those tones. Okay, so that sets that in there. As you can see, a little bit of the feeling of that right now. And now what you have to do, now what we're going to do is we come in and we'll paint specifically more of the shadow of the tree. We'll take a little burnt umber, a little bit of phthalo green, and maybe a touch, just a tiny touch of our red violet to help keep that cool. And let's come in, tapping in with just a corner of your brush, a few of the cast shadows or of the sides of the tree here. And you could use a smaller brush. Different brushes will do different things. But I like to roll and use the edge of this brush here because I get that fracturing edge. If you're 11 by 14 panel here, you can do it. There's a lot of artists that like to attack it with a small, round and put some of those in. And to a certain extent, I will do that in some of my paintings. When I'm doing a real quick or, painting like this, and definitely when I go out and plein air paint, I don't do it because that's just too much detail. You do that back in the studio. It's a good thing to do back into the studio. Here we just try to capture the visual effect of it without getting too caught up in all of that detail. That just takes too much time. So we'll thin this out. We'll umber that up just a bit. Let's come out here, grab just a bit of the others. Now, a lot of plein air painters will block paint this in instead. In other words, they'll just push areas of color instead of, doing like I'm doing, creating the little edges of the trees and stuff. And so we have a little broken edge back up there, a little higher right there. That's kind of nice. We'll capture some of that. It's not quite that pointed and stuff there, but we'll capture just a little bit of that look. I like the fusion brush for doing some of that, capturing just a bit of those edges like that. Here, I'm an edge painter. I like the edges, just like I do with the roses. I'm an edge painter. Let's thin this out, maybe add a bit of the sky and stuff to that. And let's come back here and create a little bit of the up and down for the trees back here. Impressions of them here. They'll work some along those other lines. I do like, that you get some different greens here, a little more phthalo green here. And let's touch just a bit of that along the edge here, just like that. Push up and down to create some of the look there. Those distant little trees back there, that's great. And then what I do is I'll come back with some of my light, and we liked a bit of that ultramarine blue in that, bit of that light, clean up some of the edge right there, pull that right across. This is what a distance landscape painter does a lot, So we'll clean that edge just a bit. Pull down. I'll pull down some of this to create the look of reflections and stuff. We'll come right across here with a light here and pull that across. You can see you get that nice distance there, like that, into the painting. And this is what I like, is some of this is dry underneath, so I can take these powerful light strokes, swirling strokes like this, see, and just come right up against the edge. See, that to create that kind of edge there, that doesn't need to be wet. You just let one value slide right over the other. Let's take some of that, a little bit of more of the blue. So I'm constantly changing this, the tone of this a bit. Let's slide some of that down, right down into the edge of those trees. Slide some of that across the edge of that horizon there. A little bit more light right at the edge if you want to create some of the look of pulling across your clouds. See how pretty that is now? You got those undertones there. We can go right up to the edge of that tree there, create some of that. Now on this other painting here, we have more of the clouds starting up over here onto this side. So I'll go right into the tree. This is what makes it pretty, is you go back and forth with these edges, and that's what makes it really artistic, you know. And so no, you don't paint the clouds before you paint the trees. Like now I'm going to come in here with some light colors and put the front of the trees on. But right now with the backs of the trees, we can do some of this, push some of this on like that. That's kind of pretty. I do like that blue up there though still. We'll build our light up here onto our cloud a bit more, right down towards the tree, right down into that tree a bit, right down in there like that. Create that crossing of the edges here. I might leave a little more blue across it than just to come with this white cloud all the way across. All depends here. Now, the other cloud, the other photo shows some of the shadows on the cloud. Light's coming this way, so you'd have some of that shadows. If you want to put some of that shadows, go into that blue. Let's grab just a little sienna maybe and a little bit of our red violet to keep it cool. A little bit of that ultramarine blue right in there. That's a good shadow gray color here. And you can see it picks up that coloring right in underneath there, see? And we'll push that right underneath the edge of that cloud. Maybe streak through the painting here just a bit. Let's get a little more, then make sure you put that light back up on top of that. And we'll work that color across here. I do like that look of this light cloud just stopping right there on the blue sky in that corner. I found that very interesting. So I'm going to leave that blue, that blue to that white cloud exchange right over there on that side. I like that. Maybe a bit of that cloud shadow right here. And, you can, and then I'll show you, you can back paint. Let's take a little bit of our blue right in here, our lighter sky blue here. That's just a bit too much of the ultramarine for my sky. Let's come in a little bit more phthalo, and you can back paint that to push these, and you can push them together, but you can see that creates this other broken up edge of the sky, or the cloud sky transition point there, which makes it really interesting. And so I'm accentuating it a little bit more than what we have on the other side there. And then I'll soften it, just a bit of blue, and bring my cloud, very simple cloud, right back up in front here. Right up in here. Right up there, we'll pull that through. So I do like that. I might put just, and this is an artist's choice, but a bit more white right in there. I like your eye coming right to that blue light that nice change right there. So I kind of like that. Maybe a streak, a little heavier streak of the light clouds right back here. Picking them up along that horizon line. right there. So that's kind of pretty. That gets that. It's not as heavy as what it is right there. We'll have to see what we do with the water, but you can put it in heavier. See, I can put it in now. That thing will dry down a bit, and we just put it in again. But you can put that heavier streaks in like that, or a heavier one over on that side. I like a little bit of that blue there. But let's just restate along that, since I lightened that up, let's restate along that water line back there just a bit. Pull that through, that light color coming through, so we get the right correct depth there. I like this to be a nice horizontal, but I don't like it to be absolutely perfect. So you can go up into the trees a little bit and drag across, and then that creates almost like the little reflections and stuff there as well. So you get a nice depth of that pulling down. Okay, so now we'll come down here, and I look at my tree is running right down into my water. That's what I don't like about using too much extender, keeping that too wet. Now I'll take a bit of my blue from my sky right up here, about a value 6 or 7. And I'm just going to lightly pull this across. And you see what that does is it sinks the reflection of the tree right into the water. So just pull that right across like that. And hopefully that's dried up just a bit. So we'll pull just a bit of that across. Vary that color just a bit, sometimes a little darker, sometimes a little lighter. Don't get rid of all your reflection or you'll be back doing it again, which is not hard, especially with acrylics. It's not hard. Here we go. Pull that in. That puts that reflection into the water a bit. Let's get just a touch lighter as we come forward here and capture just a bit of that movement there. That side-to-side movement. And I'm using an 8. You know, this might even work better with like a 10 or so. I'm just getting myself a new paper towel. This might work a little better with a 10 or so. A little quicker, a little faster, because we're supposed to be doing just a real quick little study. We'll push some of that light right across the front of our water here. Right like that. Okay. And right up in here against our shoreline. You'll see that, pull that across, right there. It has a bit of the violet almost color into it. So I'll put a little bit of violet into it. If you want to follow the photo real close, it's real kind of violet cool almost. Little light violet in there. Right up into that side there. We'll take some of our ultramarine blue, phthalo blue here, and let's pull some of that back this way, back and forth. And so this is what I like to use, the smaller brush, though, I mean, a 10 would be probably perfect. I just don't have one right here on my paint table. Don't you hate it when you sit down and you thought you had them all right here and you don't? But that's all right. I'll work the 10. The 8 just makes you work a little harder. Because it's just a little smaller, and you work a little harder, you tend to get more stiff. So that's one reason why I don't like it. But I'm just going to pull back and forth here just a bit like that to start to set up some of that movement that we had there. Now, before I get too much further into all of that, I'm going to use, I like my scraper. I'm going to put up some of this ground up here into the front, and this is really where I like my scraper. I'm going to pick up my yellows, and I'm going to grab that right with some of my greens. I might even toss in some of my blues here so I can get some nice variations. And a little bit of my Sienas. Don't want to mix this up too much here. And when I scrape across, see where I get that movement of the color. That's what I'm looking for. You can see that movement and stuff there into the colors here, into the ground. And I like that type of movement. There's just no beating the scraper for applying that kind of movement there. You know, if you want to grab that, and let's get a little burnt sienna right into that as well here. Grab some of that right across the front here. You can pull up and down. It's a little hard at this angle for where I'm at right now, to pulling up and down. But you see how you get that broken edge and stuff out of the water. You can get that broken edge right up here along the front. Let's go up just a bit so it's easy to see. And then what I do is I'm going to take my smaller brush with like some of my light, And I'm just going to paint into these. Let some of this happen back and forth through here. You can actually, you know, if you're painting, and we don't really see it here, but when I'm painting a lot of rocks, submerged rocks and stuff like that, I'll let that's how I'll put those all in. We'll do paintings like that, but that's how I'll put all that in. And then I come back and put the water up on top of it, and it looks all submerged and everything. So this is what I say. I like to paint too much, and then I like to paint back into it, because I get a real, what we call a painter's edge to it, an artistic edge to looking at it. It's not just you know, based in along a drawing line. You know, you've got this real artistic kind of edge to it, and I like that. You know, so that's how I like to do it. Now there's a rock right there. You know, we can paint a rock. It all depends on how much time you have, how much time you've spent on your sky, how much time you have left in your you know, in your painting to get something done. But you can drop some rocks, more than just one, right in there. Thing is, I put that paint on there real thick, and it'll be wet there for a bit. I've actually should have done it just a little sooner in the painting, so it dries up a little quicker. But I like to take some of my yellows, model those up. Let's draw, we have more yellows right in there. Let's draw across those. We'll put a few verticals in. Okay. We can push out some of that movement. That got a little too far there. Outline some of that movement, capture some of that feeling. Just don't try to copy it, just try to capture its movement. Try it so you can see kind of like a horizontal. Grab some of that horizontal. This is actually a little closer to this one over here on this side, you know. Just try to capture some of that. Don't try to copy it. Just try to take the inspiration from that. You'll get some of this movement and stuff up front here with some of these yellows. You'll grab some of that up here. We'll push some of that in. This is a lot easier when this starts to dry up. That's why I love the acrylics. So we got to let it dry here for just a minute. I'll go in and grab some core shadows. Let's grab some burnt umber, burnt sienna. There's some deeper shadows that we can get along this edge up in here. We can tap some of those in, model these two colors together. So whatever you do with your brush, it doesn't come off perfect. See, I get a variation to the color. I don't want to apply just one color. I always like to work multiple colors on my brush, so I get a nice variation to you know, what's going on. Let's grab, there's a bit of a dark right in there. Let's just grab an idea of it. And you can push up and down with your finger and slide that a bit. This is what I call incorporating the colors until it softens out a bit there. Yeah, we can grab some of this right up in here, just a bit of that. A few marks of it through the rest of this area. Maybe a bit more of this into the general area over here. You can really see it on the other one over there. You see some of that nice general area. But you're building that, right? You're building it and yeah, setting that up. Now, before I get going here too far, let's take some of our lighter yellow greens that we have over here. Tiny bit of your phthalo green blue, some Hansa yellow, some nice light. They're not as light over here, so this is where you're going to have to make a kind of a decision on this tree here, where you want to put some of those light strikes, areas of light coming down, or here, and what value you want to put them in. But I just kind of touch and tap those in. We'll go over here. You can see that a little bit more. Just imagine now, I'll add a bit of white. Let's get a few of them a little lighter touches here, right in there like that. See, by using the edge and the corners, and I'm constantly using the edge and the corner of this little fusion brush, which is a very soft brush, which works really nice with these acrylics. They work hand in hand. Of course, we developed them to work hand in hand. it gives you this nice look here, the edge of those trees. We'll darken this down just a bit. Whatever you do up in there, make sure you cast just a bit of it down into your water as well. Okay, down into your water, a little bit of that. It could have a little more shadow and stuff in there. You could add a bit more in there. But we want to keep moving here and reset. If you get too much light, or what makes light colors look lighter? That's what I always ask in my color theories. It's the dark. So if I need to increase the lightness of something, I'll put some more dark into there, you know. Let's go over not quite as light. And you can vary this, like black in the Hansa makes beautiful colors as well, maybe a little bit of blue. You can find some really beautiful tree colors. This one will be a little cooler here than that one is over there. We'll tap a bit of this around, because this one is more into the shadow than that other. Light's coming, this one's sitting more of the half of the tree here. I like how Clyde Asperberg said it's a half note of a tree. I like that term. Such a beautiful artist. And come out, you can, you know, once you get some more of these clouds done, you can put more of the little broken, use more of the corners. You could use a little bristle, you know, like sometimes with the head of a bristle, you know. But if I'm out there air painting, I'm just capturing color masses more than anything else, which is what I try to do. And I don't worry about too much of the details and stuff. Now, also, if you get something and you say, okay, you know, maybe I covered up too much of the sky. What do? You go back and put a sky hole in. Try to find right about that mid-value where you were with that color. But, you know, landscape artists of old will come back in and tap in. And because when you start to look at that, especially back there on that camera there, you go back and look at that, and it looks pretty darn good. You know, I used to, when I first started out, I was like, oh, I did the sky and I put the tree. Now, oh, I can't go back and paint the sky anymore. Baloney. They do it all the time. They paint sky holes back in all the time, blues and stuff, right back up on top of what they had here before. So, and sometimes just carry that color down, and you can push some of those sky holes right back in and loosen up and lighten up your tree a bit. They'll do that, okay? And it's a great technique to do that. So let's put a bit more dark burnt sienna and greens right in here. We'll push some of that color right in there, some of that motion. Grab some of that dark coming right across. Some of that lifting up a bit. Here, you're against the edge of the water. Watch the calligraphy of your brush. Sometimes you're going to be side to side, and sometimes you're going to be lifting. Step way back on the handle of your brush to get more. And that's why we use the long handle brushes, so we get this nice casual edge to our painting here, which is what we want. This casual edge here, so we don't get stiff here. With that, we step back. We get to work the different edges and stuff there. I'm going to actually put a little bit more onto that. That rock is starting to dry out here, and it looks really kind of weak right now, so I'll push that in a little bit more. Maybe put another one in right there. All depends how much time we're not quite an hour, so I want to try to do these with all my talking and everything, I want to try to do these between 90 minutes, an hour and 2 hours, depending upon how much detail and stuff like that we give something like this. You know, because that's what we're practicing these small ones for going out there in plein air and painting quick and stuff like that. So we're shooting for that. Now, if light's coming this way, we have a light and a shadow. Let's take a little burnt umber, a little green, a little blue. Burnt umber and the blue makes beautiful rock shadows. A little violet helps keep that even more tone. So your shadow side would be right over here to the rock. So you'll have a light side, a shadow side. You'll have a receding plane. We've talked about that in the landscape classes before. Those of you painted that, so let's put in the light plane. Let's put in a kind of a mottled receding plane here, the shadow plane, and then a nice mottled receding plane here for your little rock, you know, and then and we'll put in the light struck plane. Of course, we'll do a little bit more. Might even go to a smaller brush so we can do a little bit more. Let's put in the light struck plane here. And see, I love to take this brush and hold it real flat like this because I get a little bit of a skipping, and that makes an imperfect stroke. And then I can push that around a bit and set that rock in just a little bit more here. Work fast. Don't try to make it perfect, just work fast. We'll let some of that dry up and we'll restate it again. Maybe just an idea of another little rock right there against that. I like to, let's keep working, grab some of this yellow, model it right into all of that stuff. And let's grab a few bits of our, model this all up, grab a few bits of some kind of vertical to slight angled here for some grasses. Now sometimes I grab bristle brushes and do that. Sometimes I just make quick little color changes like this to simulate it, and that's all it needs is that nice little bit of that there to simulate the movement of it, you know, simulate that movement there, okay? That's all you want to do. You don't want to go in there and try to copy anything because then it gets stiff, right? I'm going to say that again. And then I'll probably say that again and again. And, you know, when you're here in the studio painting with me, I say it all the time because we keep always sliding into this. Since we use photographs for references, we always slide over there and start copying that photo right away. We don't want to do that. Let's just grab a little grass movement here. And so, you know, you can grab a point of a round and come in there and push some of that out. As a matter of fact, I might, as soon as I finish that water up along that edge there, might put a few grasses out there. It all depends. And it all depends on how much time you have. The purpose of this is to paint a nice landscape, but we're practicing. What I want to do is practice. We're coming up on the spring. Of course, yesterday we had a blizzard here, so we had 2.5 feet of snow hit us yesterday, and of course today it's almost 60 degrees. That's just unreal. And I went out this morning, took a whole bunch of beautiful pictures, snow pictures, snow study pictures that we'll be painting in my classes this spring. When today is starting spring, but it is. They're great. They're a great reference, but we're practicing to be able to go out there and paint something really quickly, and then I'll do more work on a larger landscape that can pull a larger price. I won't put a whole bunch of work into a small 11 by 14 type of landscape because, you know, they can't. Let's just put a simulation of a rock there. See, you just touch a little color and it might be, oh, there's just a bit of a rock poking out there, you know. I like that. But let's continue down. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I'm going to take some of this greens, burnt sienna color that I just really love. A little bit of blue into that here. This nice kind of brownish kind of color here. I want to push. I love that in the water from the tree. I love painting water. It's one of my favorite things to paint. And I paint it all different kinds of ways. But I want to draw this across just a bit more because these almost come into contact with each other. Some of this is pushing through like that. And I just love, to me, whenever I have water into a painting, and you can go on, you know, and look at all the different types of paintings I do with water and stuff. I have them all over. And water to me was something that was so hard to paint for so long. And I always thought you had to paint it wet. And, you know, and no, you don't. Now I paint it all different kinds of ways after studying all the masters and different ways they do it. But I just love painting water. And so this water that is there gets really quite a bit darker, of course, natural as it comes forward here, moving some of these colors. and then you can pull some up and down to create that wispiness of it there. Sometimes I'll take some of like my Sienas or a little violet or so into it, pull some across like this, and then move it up and down. And I used to do that with like a big mop and soft brush, and and then I started learning how to really use my brush better. And so I do more calligraphy like this. So I actually overpaint it just a bit, and then I let's come back with a nice blue, and both of these blues, just a little bit of the phthalo. Whenever I mix both together, I always mix a little less phthalo than I do ultramarine, because phthalo is so powerful. And let's just see what that blue, that's a pretty blue. It's a little bit toned in that I had some dirty brush in there, but I'm not too bothered by it. Let's brighten it up a bit. Brighten it up a bit, clean out your brush, and let's go back to a cleaner area right in here. And you'll notice this will stay, see how much cleaner, brighter that stays there? So whenever I love to paint dirty brush, but sometimes when I'm looking for some spark to the colors, look at the difference between the two, because I had that dirty color in my brush. And so when I'm looking for the spark within water or something like that, and that's a better color that I'm seeing right in there, just pull that across a bit. Now you can, there's a lot where you can use the chisel of the brush and pull across like this. Now it's easier when that gets a little dry, so you don't get too much blank, because see, I pulled that green back out with that damp brush. So you have to be, there's a little give and take to it. But I really like to do this kind of stuff. I'll set my brush down flat where I'm just grinding that ferrule and pull across like that. I get that nice rippling to the water, see? And I pull it both ways. So I'll start right in there. Sometimes I'll push it back just a bit and pull that across. Sometimes I'll blur that edge just a bit there. Okay. Let that come right in here into this brightness here. Work that. This is really where I think the interest of the painting is, in this transition area right in here. So I'll work that just a bit. There, like that. Grab that and work those lights right in there. Let's grab some of this and pull that out a bit. Work that right up against the edge there. Let those edges just kind of work together, fade together there. You may see, some paintings I'll paint them more perfect or precise, but I like this where it's dry and it kind of goes in and out, between the two there. I do like that. We'll make some different blues, model them up a bit different here. But see how this overrides. This is the way I like to paint. I get that nice, what we call the fractured edge there, the broken edge, right in there like that. And that looks pretty good. And, sometimes you'll come in there and leave it a little bit harsher. A little bit more precision, and sometimes fracture it. And that's where you get a lot of beauty going back and forth to your water's edge there. And we'll drag some of this across here, like that, a little bit. And you can build that movement up to whatever you want to do. Here, you can build that up to wherever you want. Here, just keep painting, keep painting. Don't stop. Don't stop and try to make something perfect. That isn't what this is. This is a quick landscape. We're challenging you to paint this stuff fast. Keep going. Just like I challenge you to paint that rose. You learn through speed, because speed forces you to break your habits that you might have. So we'll pull some of that through there like that. Break that in. And if you want to get more realistic, then you leave a little bit more of an edge to some of your marks. And that really drives that, because that's what it is, you know. Out there in nature, they don't have blended, because light doesn't blend. Light doesn't bend around things, which means it doesn't blend. A lot of people blend it, but if you're, you know, if you study light, like I've studied light my entire life. I studied it in physics in college, and then studied it as an artist. Light does not bend. Light runs in straight lines, and so it doesn't bend around something to blend something. So let's take a little bit more of a blue, and we'll back paint out just a bit. Remember how I say I like to put on too much, and then I'll back paint out. So I'll come back here, change the color again, start right over here, pull that across and lift off, and grab that edge there. Let's grab just a bit more dark right there and pull that across, right in there. That works. And of course you can get quite a bit darker up there because the photos do. You can grab just a bit more of that through. I like that, moving those tones there. You don't want to make it zebra striped, so you want to make sure that they all vary just a little bit in their width and stuff. Okay. Bit more crossed. Pull that back. So that's working pretty good. Put some of that nice light back up through here. A little bit more light to that. Always check over the color to the value scale. I'm up here, you know, up towards my 7 and 8s here. And see how that fits right in there real nice. Gets a little bit of blue. And you can bring back a little bit of blue. I'm just thinning my brush out so I can grab just a little bit of this. A little bit of that thin blue right along the edge there. Helps that shoreline. Pops that in before you get to that that tree. You'll see a bit of that, just a tiny bit of that blue reflecting over there. You don't need to capture it perfect, just capture some of that idea of it. Don't get wrapped up into having to capture it perfect. Now, let's paint a few things for depth. So I'm going to take some of my real light here, and I'm going to focus right here with a light and make a definite plane difference between the tree and that backwater there. And that will increase the depth of the painting here. So there's certain areas we look for in landscapes that we can increase the depth. And see, that pulls that right there. And that gets into what I call the detail of the painting. And I start to look further and further into the painting. You know, now's the time to start doing that. I do like some of that that violet that's up along the water up here and to the front. Now, this is where an artist might take this whole violet look. You can see it, but you can see it in there. Might take this whole violet look and really expand it a little bit more into the harmony of the painting. It's what makes a beautiful painting. So you take a color like a violet like that and start to travel it. You can travel some of that to the bottom parts of your clouds here like that, and that just makes, you know, beautiful harmony through your painting a little bit. You might take that as a nice applied color, a little bit of it through some of your tree. Even if you don't see it in your photos and stuff, put it in, because it's a beautiful harmony color. So I do like that violet and the blue violet here. We'll just grab a bit of that through here. A few streaks of that here, going back and forth there like that. That's just kind of pretty. So you can build on that. You know, only got 15 minutes left, so I watch the clock. I watch the clock because it keeps me moving, and I want to try to do this in an hour and a half. So, and I want to put a little bit more light onto the trees here, a little bit more light green onto the trees here. especially onto this cool one here, a bit more. Not quite that much. You can have a little sienna in it, model it up a bit. And let's just have a touch more light, and not everywhere, because don't take out all those sky holes, Dave. Not everywhere. Pull that out. Now I've got this, and I like that. I like overall with the tree. I would like to see a little bit more dark, which really helps the painting over here. The dark helps this tree advance a bit more here as well. So, and with this type of technique, this applied technique here, of these colors like this, you can put dark. You know, it used to always say, no, always put the light on top of the dark. No, that doesn't apply to this. You can go back and forth, because this is an applied optical technique, and so you get 3 feet away, you can't tell that kind of difference here. So we'll leave just a bit of that. Let's grab just a bit of that right up in here as well. Bit of that dark right up there. Maybe a touch or so right along the edge of our rock here. Light and dark. I start to look to expand my light and dark just a bit more, you know, to the painting. And again, work. Work the edge here. Get some, you know, I'm not going to use my small liner brush or anything. I painted this with basically 2 brushes. I'm just using the edge and dragging here to create some of the angled and verticals that you would have from little grasses along the edge of something there. But you could, you know, take your little brush and pull out some of your grasses and stuff. I'm just going to do this, and that looks like, that's quick, and that looks like grasses along the edge there. And I just love these fusions. They just paint this so well, because they're so soft, and you can manipulate them to do anything. So I can manipulate out here and, you know, try to capture a few more of those shadows and stuff a little better. You know, or you can do that if you're plein air and stuff. You could do that when you get back into the studio. Take a nice reference photo and go back into the studio and finish up some of that. Grab some of that here. Grab that edge there. Push that light right there like that. That's pretty good. And a little bit more of and I start looking for smaller bits of tone, a little more of an umber tone here, umber sienna tone right there like that. And there I like that, but I like all that movement. I would probably work the grasses up here in the front just a bit more for a bit more interest right up here. This is where I really like to have calligraphy coming from the brush, and you see all these layers now coming back in there. See, that's where it gets pretty. And I don't try to do it, you know, all at once, and I definitely don't do it when it's wet, because it all blends into one thing. So I like to work it in layers. Here, grab this next one, model it on your brush, and just kind of pull through like that. Grab some of that nice working color coming here. Of course, there's a little bit more of it, like right up in here on the edge of this string grasses. Just roll the corner of your brush. Here you can put a few up over the edge of your rock. You can bring your rock out more if you want to see more on your rock. Here. That's pretty good. Get a bit more of that light. A few light hits of the grasses here. I like that. Sometimes I use all different kinds of brushes. Of course, during the challenge here, I'll show you some of the different techniques and stuff. But one of them I like is the bristle that I took. I took a bristle round and I hammered it flat, and So I turned it into one of these things, and then I cut out some of the hairs, and this makes wonderful little grasses if I wanted to come in there and work that. It makes wonderful little grasses. But I feel like painting this with the fusions and stuff, and as fast as we did, this is fine. But if I'm doing a studio painting, yeah, I'm going to do a heck of a lot more work into the fronts of that. Now, see, I like the light, and then I'll come here. Let's rinse this brush here, and let's get a clean paper towel and really wipe that out. Let's take some nice phthalo blue and white down here where we're a little cleaner. And this is, I really do like that, to make sure I have a bit of nice color against that cloud. I like this corner right up here. And so this is what I do, is I'll negative paint back up against the cloud to really pop up the edge of the cloud to where I want that. So I'm a little more contrasty than what the photo shows. Well, actually, it depends on which photo you're going to look. Look, I'm sorry, you guys didn't see that. I should pull that down to see that. But I'll negative paint like this up against the edge. And see how that just makes that nice found edge there just a bit more against the edge of that cloud there. And we can streak that in. See, that just makes beautiful control. You got beautiful control. So I'm over painting what I see there, a little bit more of what I see here. And then I can take, now that that cloud is dry, and look at the little touches of violet underneath there and everything. But now I can take some more of my white right down here, and I can pop it right into that and just roll the brush and scumble. This is a scumbling technique that the Dutch did. And I can scumble into that blue just to create a few softer edges right there like that. But I can also plow it real heavy right like that to create a nice found edge of that cloud right there. And I'm going to take some nice texture and apply it right in here, heavy, and let that just scumble right down towards that violet. So I get a different layering here of the cloud, see? Here like that. So I'll get a layer to the cloud. But I want some nice heavy texture. This is what a lot of representational artists do. A lot of impressionist artists do. We use texture a lot. So I'll use some of that. I'll put that there. But I'll let some of that come down. And I'll move to more of a little bit more violet, a little bit of blue, and more of a horizontal strike right across there. Because the clouds start to get a little bit more horizontal looking as they get further back. And let's just do that edge one more time. Maybe a little bit of that violet. That would be pretty. Into that. Right against that edge. That's where you take artist license and stuff. Right up against that edge, since we have that in that cloud. You're taking that back edge, and see, that just helps the depth of your painting. Helps the depth of everything that you're painting there. Refining. Now you're coming through, and see, even in this, we're what? 1 hour, 23 minutes. So I have 7 minutes to kind of clean it up. Look at the monitor there. You look at that and you go, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm capturing right between the two of them there. I see more violet down in there and more violet down in there. And you can put that in. And that violet's really kind of pretty. So I might just expand that violet up here. Not quite that much. I got a little aggressive here. Put a little blue into that. That's pretty. Let's lighten that up a bit, a little blue, model that into the brush, and we might pull some of that. Yeah, that's just a little bit too violet still. Let's go over here towards our blues just a bit more. Push a little bit of that into it. That is kind of pretty, that violet Plein up against the, you see when you get up there like that, and you see, you start to see that violet there, so you can start to see that violet happening there. It looks a little bit more blue on my palette, but it looks very violet here when I go up onto the canvas here, up onto the board. Play that back and forth a bit, tap that around. Let's just let that play just a bit in there. And of course you can put the ripples in too. You know, the ripples there, water ripples, are coming in slightly at an angle like this, so you can push some of that in if you want to push those in. Paint them back and forth, You got 7, 8 more minutes. You could do that. Well, actually, if you want to take 2 hours, you can. But we want to try to go somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours, no more than that, because 2 hours is your working time on plein air and stuff. So we want to try to do that, to get ourselves painting, you know, and it's what I've been concentrating with my students here in the Art Center and on my online classes. Painting a little faster, a little bit more decisive. And you know, it goes back to what the master says. It's much better to put on a stroke that is wrong with confidence and quickly than it is to sit there and playing with it to make it perfect, because that just makes it stiff. So your stroke or your mark that you're putting on may be, you know, slightly wrong or something like that, and that's okay. In the long run of everything, that is okay, because that is, you know, that's not going to be noticed. A viewer isn't going to know whether it was right or not. They're not going to have a photo there that you've painted to look at. They are just going to be seeing what it is that you're, you know, giving them to view, and so they don't know. And so don't sit there and spend a lot of time doing it. So in other words, it's a lot better to put that on with confidence and power than it is to play with that and make that, you know, perfect here. So I think I'll put a bit of this on. I'm not sure. I might lighten up that back tree just one more little bit, and then I'm going to get out of this painting because I kind of like it. It's kind of nice for where it is. You know, there, I love that, these are the colors I love in the water the best. And I could have a bit more of those, or a bit more streaks of these blues, but or those greens and stuff. I just love those kinds of colors in the water. But I think, you know, for a quick little painting like this, this is fine. I'm just going to lighten up that tree back there just a bit more. That's just so, I'm going to go more of a lighter yellow-green here. And we're just going to apply a little bit of that. I like the granulated look, but you know, as a tree gets further back, you don't want to do too much of that, because those are soft, I mean, those are edges. So we want to keep the edges back here, these two trees, kind of soft. So as much as I like that, I'm going to tap through it to take some of it out and softer like that. So I capture just some of that movement. And you might see it in there, but, you know, you're the artist. Your job as the artist is to, you know, I'm just looking at these edges here. See the broken edges to the light and shadow. These are the things I start to look at now as you're getting to the final, and you're looking at some of that detailing there. And then, you know, maybe a couple of light, slightly different touches right up in here to break this up in front here. A few little marks here. I like painting like this. I don't like using a small round and going in there and detailing it. But you know, you certainly could. You can go in there with a round and detail all of that up. You know, let's bring out our rock just a bit more. It's a gray, it's a burnt sienna and a blue, it's a violet and a green. You know, make it all different kinds of ways. Let's bring it up a little lighter, a little gray, a little different color. Here, nice. You have the receding plane there. You have the light struck plane. Since the light is coming off of this side, we'll lighten that up just a bit more there. Grab that edge, lighten one up there. Let's drop it down into shadow, and then we'll call it done. Here, we'll drop that down into shadow there a bit more. There we go. A little bit of that shadow. That might be just a touch blue, and it's just nice. You get into that broken color. We'll talk a lot about that. I do in all my classes. Broken color is one of the best techniques you have as an artist, where we separate really the artist, and that's what when I study artists, I study their broken color, how they paint the broken color. So we'll need to take a little bit more into that. There we go. Nice little rock. It's a little more detailed rock than what we have on the other one. But some of those edges. Quick little painting, okay? Your first landscape, 1 of 12. We're going to do 12 of these, about 1 a week or so. And it all depends. It's hard this time of year. We get a lot of stuff going on in the studio. But I'm going to try to do about 1 a week. I'm going to be running another challenge also. We're going to do a 30-minute wildflower challenge. So about 1 or so a week. So we're going to be painting back and forth between landscapes and wildflowers, and see if we can get you to do all different kinds of things. So look at that, step back, look at those, see if you just kind of captured the idea of it and stuff. You know, this grasses are out a little further than that, but I kind of like that. The one thing that I actually, let me change that real quick, because I do see that I don't like is that this is forming a nice tangent line here. So, and that's one thing I always caution everybody about. Sometimes you don't see it till like the very end like this, and it's just like, oh, I should fix that. And a tangent line is creating a line right between the here and the ground. So I'm going to take this out just a little further here, right out into the water like that. So you can see what that does? It just, you know, sometimes you get those lines and you don't, you know, put a little bit of the Sienas in there. It's easy to change, you know, once you get all these colors kind of set up there like that. See, that's kind of pretty. That jutting that out a little bit further. And then if you want to put that light grasses and stuff up on top of that. So that's a nice, what I call a nice horizontal. And then you come in here with just a couple of, just a corner, just whisper the corner of your brush like that to get a couple of vertical movements into there. And you create some of that nice grasses look right there like that. And that looks kind of nice. Let's join those up just a bit right there. And then we'll get out, because we're right at 1:30 with it. Okay, with our painting. All right, okay, thanks very much. I'll see you on the next challenge. Don't forget, if you haven't painted a rose challenge, go do the rose challenge. And if you're not going to, and follow me along on the wildflower challenge. That one's coming as well, okay? Alrighty, I'll see you on the next one.